චරණ සම්පන්නෝ සුගතෝ ලෝකවිදු අනුත්තරෝ පුරිස ධම්මසාරතේ සත්තා දේවමන්තානං භගවාති
We can all be seated, no? Okay. So before starting today's Gilantana Buddha Puja, let us remind ourselves that we have got this opportunity to do a great merit today by offering the offerings to the perfect one, our Lord Buddha. Therefore, let us invite all sentient beings who are there in these 10,000 world systems. Let us invite them all to witness this, the great merit that we are about to do. So I want you to extend this invitation out there in your hearts and minds with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness. Before we start today's Buddha Puja, let us pay our homage to the Noble Triple Gem and observe in 5 precepts. In order to do so, let's recite Namaskara 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Please repeat all together and after me. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Saranaгаmanang sampunnang. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinādana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi. Kāmesu Micchācārā Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi. Musāvādā Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi. Surāmeraya Majjapamā Daṭṭhāna Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyāmi. Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammam sādhukam surakkhitam katva appamādena sampādeta. Okay, having observed these 5 precepts, let us offer the offerings that we have offered to the Lord Buddha by chanting these stanzas all together and with me. Ghanasarappadittena dīpena tamadansina tiloka dīpaṃ sambuddhaṃ pūjayāmi tamonudaṃ Vanna gandha gunopetaṃ etaṃ kusuma santatin pūjayāmi munindassa sire pada saroruhe pūjayami buddhaṃ kusumena nena puññena metena labhami mokkhaṃ pubbhaṃ nilayāti yatha idam me kāyo tathāyāti vināsa bhāvaṃ sugandhikāya vadanaṃ ananta gunagandhina Sugandhinaṃ gandhena pūjayāmi tamo tathāgataṃ Sugandhaṃ sītalam kappam pasanna madhuraṃ subhaṃ Pānīyametam bhagavā patiganhātu muttamam Adhevasetu no bhante chatu madhuram parikappitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatu muttamam Adhevasetu no bhante atthapanam parikappitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatu muttamam adhivasetu no bhante gilana paccayaṃ imam anukampam upadaya patiganhatu muttamam adhivasetu no bhante bhesajjaṃ parikappitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatu muttamam adhivasetu no bhante sabbam saddhāya pujitam anukampam upadaya patiganhatu muttamam sadhu sadhu sadhu. Now let us remind that we may have offended the Noble Triple Gem, the Sambuddha Shasana, and all the noble ones. We may have slandered them, desecrated them, and reviled them, either knowingly or unknowingly, with our words, actions, and what we speak. Let us all get together and remind ourselves that we may have offended them, and let us seek for forgiveness from the Noble Triple Gem by chanting these stanzas all together and with me. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang ajjayang kamame bhante bhuri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang ajjayang kamame dhamma sanditthika akalika. Kayena vacha cittena pamadena maya katang ajjayang kamame sangha supatipanna anuttara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now let us transfer the merits that we may have acquired to all the gods, deities, and ancestors that have predeceased us. May through the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. In order to do so, let's recite these stanzas all together and with me. Akasaddha ca bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu sambuddha sasanam. Chirang rakkhantu sambuddha desanam. Chirang rakkhantu sambuddha savakanti. Idam me jnatinam hotu sukhita hontu jnatayo. Idam vo jnatinam hotu sukhita hontu jnatayo. Idam no jnatinam hotu sukhita hontu jnatayo. Let us resolve that may through the power of these blessings, may I get the association of the noble ones and not the ignoble ones, and may through the power of these merits, may I be able to abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. In order to do so, let's recite these stanzas all together and with me. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satam samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Idam me punya kammam asavakkaya vahang hotu sabba dukkha pamunchatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Having offered the offerings to the Perfect One, we all have acquired a huge merit. Now it's the time to yield the results of such merits, to obtain the most virtuous, the most noble effects of this supreme Sambuddha Sasana. That is to gain and acknowledge and acquire the wisdom which is required, which is the only effective thing that can be obtained through this supreme Sasana. So in order to do that, we will invite the countless sentient beings out there in 10,000 world systems, because if not for their sacrifice, we would not get this chance to listen to the perfect ones' discourses. Therefore, with such an grateful mind, let us invite all of them out there and to witness this meritorious deed and to fulfill their gaps in the merits and to obtain any gaps and fulfill the merits. Therefore, they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana as well. So when I do the invitation out there, in the countless sentient beings, I want you all to extend that invitation into your hearts and minds with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhammang Munirajansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Saddhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. Having invited the countless sentient beings, let us remind ourselves that we may have offended the noble ones, either knowingly or unknowingly, through our words, actions, or speech. So let us take the forgiveness from the noble ones for any actions, thoughts, or that is spoken, either knowingly or unknowingly. So let us take forgiveness, seek for forgiveness for all the actions that may have offended, reviled, desecrated, and slandered the nobility and the noble virtues. With this in your mind, let us get ready to listen to the discourses on the expositions that was once uttered through the perfect one's mind. Okay. We all have gathered here to a very noble cause. And I believe each and every one of us knows why we have gathered here today. That is none other than to get the essence of a supreme Sambuddha Sasana, which is the wisdom, none other than the wisdom. The Lord Buddha himself has uttered Panyayan Tassayan Dhammo Nayan Dhammo Duppanyasa, which means the expositions that he has exposed to this world is only for the wise, not the otherwise. Therefore, I invite you all to open your eyes of wisdom at the end of this discourse. You can only do this by engaging actively in this discourse. So, when I ask a rhetoric question, do not let that be just a rhetoric question. Try and engage in this discourse, because the application of the teachings of the Buddha, that requires a lot of engagement. Therefore, folks, I invite you all to actively engage in this sermon, or the discussion rather. Therefore, you yield the maximum benefit out of it. Therefore, with compassion that you all have organized such an event, which is magnificent, which is truly praiseworthy, because these kinds of events are very rare to be found. I can truly be really happy that far and out there, away from Sri Lanka, these events have been organized because of the unity of the people that lives in this country. The unity signifies many things, because if not for the unity that you have with each other, these events would have been impossible. It would not only have been difficult, it would be impossible. So these kinds of events truly signifies the true unity that you have with each other. So let me do the honor for that unity, which is really praiseworthy of each and every one of you. Lord Buddha himself has praised the unity of the Mahasangha. Sukha Sanghasa Samaggi, Samagganan Taposukho. Samaggi means the unity. Sukha is the happiness or the contentment. The unity between the Sangha yields the utmost result, which is the Nibbana. Samagganan Taposukho. This word tapo signifies the eradication of defilements, which is the essence, which is why we have come to the Supreme Sambuddha Sasana, to eradicate all our defilements. These defilements will spoil the mindset. Therefore, if we live this life with these defilements, then we can't yield the maximum result of this life itself. You can't be happy. Let me ask you a question. So now, am I doing this sermon to myself? No. As I told you, please try to engage. So, at least try to nod or say no, like this. That body language matters a lot. Right? Okay, let me ask this question from you all. Are you happy? Most of the times, the response that I get to this question is, yes, Swaminatha, we are so happy. Can't you see we are smiling? We are so happy. But let me tell this to you. If you have already found what happiness is, will you be looking for it once again? Try to get an answer to this question. Can you stop looking for happiness? You are looking for happiness, but what I'm asking is, can you stop it? Can you stop the urge that which is bubbling through your mind? What if you tried? Let's say that you try to do that. What would happen if you try to do that? Something will bubble up from your mind, from the bottoms of your hearts. Why is that? There is a cause for this. As the Lord Buddha says, everything is an effect of causes. Nothing is just born just because. Therefore, what you do to suppress your urges, your wantings, your expectations, is going to be very hard because of the bubbling of the stress. These days people talk about stress, aren't they? Do you know what stress is? Have you heard about it? Or have you experienced it? Who am I kidding with? You know better than me what stress is all about. So, what is the cause of this stress? Because if everything is an effect of causes, the same should apply to the stress that which is built up in your mind. Let us talk about it. Why do you feel stressed when you don't get what you want? Actually, the answer is quite there in the question itself. When you come to know this, you will know. But first of all, let us understand that. Why do you become stressed? Did I ask a correct question? Let me clarify. Do you become stressed? If you become stressed, you should be able to come out of it. You should be able to eradicate it. If you yourself create the stress, why do you create it to begin with? Stop creating it. So, it's very easy if that's the case. So let us all take a firm resolve that from today, I'm not going to create any stress. How about that? Will that work? Will that resolution will it eradicate the stress? Have you tried it? It won't do anything. Why? Because you didn't create it to begin with. If you have created the stress, you should have been able to eradicate it, eliminate it totally. But you're not able to do that. Why? Because you didn't create it to begin with. But yet it is created. So, if it's an effect of a cause, so my question is, what is it? What is the cause of stress? What do you think? Some of you might say that the workload stresses me out. Or the ones who are learning, who are schooling, will say that, oh, that homework that I have to do, that gives me a huge stress. Don't you agree with me, sir? Okay. But I'm going to prove that none of this is the cause of your stress. The fact that you have to do a lot of homework, or the fact that you have piles up in your to-do list is not the cause of stress. The cause of stress is your own desires, is your own wantings, is your own expectations. So let us prove that. Let's say, so I think this would ring a bell to all our students here who are in our Dharma school. Let's say that in your school, you're at the verge of your exam and you're studying so hard, especially because your parents guide to it. And you say that you have become stressed because of the exam. Right? So, if you have become stressed because of the exam, why doesn't your teacher become stressed? Because teacher is the one who organizes the exam, and she is the one, or he or she is the one who conducts the whole situation. It should be even more stressful than what you are doing, because you just need to write a few lines, but they have to organize the whole thing, entire thing. You know this? Because you have an expectation to pass and to get a certain mark, that desire causes you to be stressed. But such a desire wouldn't occur in a teacher's mindset. But if that teacher's son or daughter is also in that same class, of course the teacher also becomes stressed now. Why? Because they want their child to pass the exam. It's not the exam that makes the stress, it's the wanting. Dear children, this is a very simple concept, yet it is harder to absorb and internalize and digest. Let us clarify little by little, one small step at a time. Tell me this. When you get the desired level of mark, how does it feel like? You might say that you will feel over the moon. Someone might say that they are on the 9th cloud. Why do you feel this way? What is the cause for this? because you are being relieved of a huge stress. This relief that you feel it as a pleasure. This is what we define as pleasure. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying the interpretation of it. There's something wrong with it. So let us clarify what pleasure is. Have you all experienced pleasure? Do you know what I'm talking about? Let's take a simple example. Let's say that you have been suffering from a huge headache, a throbbing headache. Now what do? You take a pill of paracetamol or 2 pills of paracetamol. What would it do to your headache? You will get out of the headache. You will be cured of the headache. Then, how would you feel it like? You will once again say, "Oh, what a relief." You say, "What a relief." That means something has been released. If there's a release, my question is, what sort of thing could be released? Can a vacuum be released? Do you normally say that a vacuum is released? What is released? If that is a release, what should that be? That should be what do you think it is? It should be a pressure. If there is only pressure, that will be released. So what you say to yourself when you experience the getting rid of the headache is quite true. Yes, of course, indeed. It's a huge relief. If there was a relief, what should have been there to begin with? A pressure. Did you understand, Buddha? So let us clarify this. When you feel this pleasure, what just happened was release of a pressure. So when this pressure is released, you feel it as if that pleasure got created in your mind. Right? But did that pleasure got created? Now let us clarify this. Okay, let's take an example or an analogy, because most of these concepts are totally abstract, because we are talking about the mind. I can't show it because it's the mind that we are talking about. It's all the mental concepts. Can I show you the mind? Here it is. No, it is nothing tangible. It cannot be shown by any means. Therefore, we use analogies. In the Buddhist scripture, you may find many of the analogies that the Lord Buddha himself has given. So let us take a sort of an analogy. So, what is the analogy that we are going to talk today? Regarding the pressure. When your mind becomes pressurized, it acts like a pressure cooker. Do you know what pressure? Have you seen it? Have you heard that whistling sound that it makes? How does it make? What kind of sound does it make? Psst. Yes. Why does it make it sound? Is there someone inside there, within the pressure cooker, who whistles? No. The pressure cooker is it's an air compact utensil, cooking utensil. When we apply some water, when we apply heat from the underneath, the water boils inside and it produces a heap of vapor. This vapor increases the pressure inside. And you may have noticed on the lid of the pressure cooker there is a small nozzle, which is by default is closed by a piece of metal. This piece of metal has a weight in it. Therefore, now this nozzle is also closed. Therefore, what happens? The pressure which is built up in the pressure cooker exerts an uplift force on this piece of metal. When this uplift force becomes greater than the weight itself, the weight of that piece of metal itself, what happens? Then this piece of metal is being lifted up, releasing the excess pressure. So you know all of this because you have learnt your physics, right? If not, you will learn it in your school, don't worry, right? So this is what happens when the pressure exceeds the maximum tolerable level that the pressure cooker can handle, right? This is exactly what happens within your mind. Because why do you think there's a nozzle on the top of the lid of the pressure cooker? If not, what would have happened? Exactly. It would have exploded the pressure cooker. Therefore, actually, by the presence of a nozzle at the top of the lid of the pressure cooker, it protects the integrity of the pressure cooker. Therefore, it is a safety mechanism. Right? Therefore, in our minds, when the mind becomes pressurized, there is a safety mechanism as well. If not, our minds would have exploded. Actually, such exploded minds sometimes could not be reversed. An exploded mind signifies a lunacy of some sort. Right? Therefore, what prevents you from becoming psychotic or lunatic is this safety mechanism. This is the release of pressure. Actually, do you do that? Let us go back to the analogy and please try to answer to this question. Did the pressure cooker lift that piece of metal up? Did it do that? No. The pressure itself was responsible for that upliftment of the piece of metal. Did you understand that? Therefore, who does the things that you like? That is such a meaningless question that it seems like that. Okay, let's say that you like to have a piece of pizza. Do you like to have a piece of pizza? Okay, whatever that you like, right? It could be a hot chocolate, let's say, for example. Right? When you like to have a hot chocolate, do you do that? Of course, you will tell me that, yes, I do that because I like it, because I love it. If you are doing it, you should be able to not do it as well. Because you are the whole proprietor, or the authority is within you. If you have this ability to performing this action, you should also have the ability to stop that action as well. What do you think? Will you have that ability and capacity to stop executing such an action from your minds? Yes, for some time, right? But how long are you going to suppress it? Not for very long. Have you tried that? I'm sure you have. When you keep on suppressing yourself, the pressure becomes unbearable. When this point is reached, you cannot control it anymore. Then what will happen? Yes, the safety mechanisms comes into place and it is being executed beyond your control. This is what I need you to understand and focus. Everything what you do, what you think you do, is not what you do. It's what the pressure does to you. To be honest, you are being enslaved by this pressure. If you disagree with me, try not to do that. Try not to do what you like, what you prefer. Try to abstain from all your pleasurable things that comes in your life. What will happen? If you keep on doing that, beware, your mind will get exploded. Dear ladies and gentlemen, and my children, you need to understand this. This is how the mind works. Whatever that you are going to do, whatever that brings you pleasure, you are not doing it. You are being compelled to do that. You are being compelled to do that by the pressure that is developed in your mind. So this pressure compels you. It pushes you, it drives you forcefully to execute an action. And even if you try to go against that entire force, you are unable. You are incapable of doing it. Because the force that is developed in the mind is so force. Therefore, what we need to understand is that we feel it as we do it. Though we feel that we are being driven by a huge pressure which is developed in the mind. And it is this pressure itself which is known as the stress. People talk about stress these days. Not only these days, they have been talking throughout, right? Even in the future, do you think that they will stop talking about stress? No. Why? They'll keep on having the stress because they still have the cause for it. If you don't eradicate the cause of the stress, can you eradicate the stress? No. If you try to do that, it's like trying to put off a fire by adding kerosene or petrol. Will you be able to succeed in it? Actually, you are only making it worse and worse and worse. Haven't you done the same thing for your desires? Have they gotten rid of it? Have you gotten rid of any desire? Please let me know. Can you think of any one desire? Not two. Can you name one desire that you have suppressed or not suppressed, that you have gotten rid of just by giving what the mind needs? How many hot chocolates would you have to consume to get rid of the desire that you have in your mind towards hot chocolate? How many hot chocolates? 100? 1,000? 10,000? What do you think? And how many hot chocolates do you think that you have had already? Not only in this lifetime. Still counting on. This is what we need to realize, my dear children. You don't need to suffer like this. This suffering that you're going through is unnecessary. You can get rid of this suffering once and for all. There's a clearly mentioned path. It's a clearly exposed path by the Perfect One. 2,500 years ago. It's already been proven and it's already been practiced and the results have been yielded. Therefore, let me invite you all to practice it and yield the results. Because if you haven't yielded the results, if you have not experienced what I am experiencing now, you won't know what I am talking about. Let's take another analogy. Let's say there's a person who has come down from heaven, let's say, for an instance, right? It's all arbitrary, right? A person who has come from heaven or from the Brahma world where they don't have tastes, right? They don't experience taste. They only experience the sight and the sound and the mind itself, right? Nothing else. And they have come here as a human. Now, they ask you, what is the taste of salt? How does salt taste like? Can you explain to them? By not giving a piece of some salt to it, not to taste them, can you explain what feels like? What is the taste of salt? Can you try and explain them? No. Why? Because the taste of salt is an experience. You cannot share the experience, but you say that you can share the experience. How can you do that? You have to apply some salt on their tongue. Then that becomes their personal experience. Did you share your experience with them? Oh, they got their own experience. They got their own. Likewise, I'm talking about an unconditional happiness. You're also talking about unhappiness, but we are not on the same page. That is why the words which have been exposed by the Perfect One, they have superior meanings. They cannot be defined by the general means that the day-to-day world functions. Therefore, we have to understand the deeper meanings of these words. Therefore, don't try to understand on a very superficial level. I invite you all to read between the lines. Don't try to understand or comprehend what the word means, because the words are just empty vessels. They don't have the meanings. Right? So, the word doesn't say anything, or it doesn't convey the idea if you don't get the perfect meaning of that word. Therefore, the definition or the meaning matters the most. Right? Therefore, the words are of a language. Right? So you speak Sinhalese and English, maybe Arabic, I don't know, or many other languages. But are they the only languages that are being spoken in this world? No, there are many other languages. But do you get the same meaning of any word that is being spoken here? What do you think? Words are just empty vessels. So they don't convey the correct meaning. Como podemos ir a clase sin sombrilla? Did you understand that? But it had a meaning. That was a bit of a Spanish. All of those languages have such kinds of meanings. That is why I invite you to focus on the meaning, not just the words. Okay, so let's go back to the same topic where we were. So we were talking about this stress. And when you come out of the stress, or when the stress is being reduced, you feel a nice feeling, what we refer to as pleasure. Where does this pleasure come from? Now this is my question. Is it clear to you all? Please give me that nod. Okay. Where does this pleasure come from? Before answering to this question, let me give you another analogy. Do you know how to clap? Yes. How do you clap? By colliding your hands with each other. Right? Do you have any other ways of clapping? Can you clap by one hand? Can you do that? No. You have to collide your two hands with each other. You may be able to produce a sound by tapping somewhere on a surface, but that you don't call that a clap. Right? You can only make a clap or perform it by colliding your two hands with each other. Right? And it produces a sound. Right? Okay, I don't want you to do it now, right? In your imagination only. Okay. So, now let me ask this question. Where does this sound come from? What do you think? From the air? No? From the hands? What do you think? The sound doesn't come from the hands, really? The clap of the sound, where did it come from? Yes, if you were there for the yesterday's sermon, you would know. Right? So, yes, you are correct. Actually, the sound doesn't come from the hands. What? Someone might ask. That shouldn't have come from the hands, because they have been produced by colliding the two hands together. Right? Let us clarify. There is something wrong, essentially wrong, which is embedded in this question itself. What is wrong with this question? Okay. Let me ask the same question by using different words. Where was the sound before the collision? Before you collide your two hands together, where was the sound? What do you think? Will you be able to find a sound before the collision? No. Why? Because the collision should happen for the sound to occur. Did you understand? Without any collision, you can't even talk about a sound. The sound only manifests by the collision of the two hands. Is it clear? If it is not clear, we cannot proceed. That is why I'm always clarifying with you. Right? So please give me that nod. Okay. So, if you cannot comment about a sound without the collision of the two hands, then what if I ask you, where is it? Where is that sound? But the problem is, such sound doesn't exist in this world before the collision, right? So you are asking about a question that which doesn't exist in this world. For example, let me ask you another question. What is the name of this dragon that which flies here? Is there a dragon here? No. No such dragon is here. But I'm asking, what is the name of it? If there is no such dragon here, whatever the question that I'm going to ask you about such a dragon would be wrong. Whatever the answer that you're going to give would be wrong. What is the correct answer to this question? There's no correct answer. Isn't that the very reason that you are awarded a free mark to every wrong question that is being questioned in your exam papers? Right? There's no right answer, there's no correct answer to a wrong question. Therefore, would you waste your time answering a wrong question? Because anyway you are being awarded a free mark. Right? Shall I tell you a truth? Shall I tell you a secret? In your lifetime, you're spending your life more than 90% of the time trying to answer a wrong question. You're trying to you're looking for something that which doesn't exist. But you believe firmly, thoroughly in your hearts and minds that such thing exists. That is why you're looking for it. This reminds me of a very old story which comes from Zen Buddhism. There's an old lady who has lost her needle. She's looking for it. And a nice young gentleman comes for her help. She's looking for her needle under a lamp post. Under that light, she's looking for her needle. Then this young gentleman, the nice chap, comes and helps her. And he also helps. He asks her, "What are you looking for, ma'am?" Then she replies, "Oh, my dear child, I'm looking for my needle. And I've been looking for it for a few hours now." Now this young gentleman also starts looking for it. He looks for everywhere but couldn't find it. By not being able to find it, the gentleman asked this lady, "Where did you drop it? Where would you have dropped it?" Then this old lady says, "Oh, I dropped it in my home." Then this young gentleman asked, "What? If you dropped it in your home, why are you looking it under a lamppost?" Then she answers, "It is the night. At my home, there's no electricity. There's no light. Therefore, I came under this lamppost where the light is there." If you meet such an old lady, what would you tell her? What would you tell her? She doesn't even know what she's looking for. Such a needle, could it occur under the light of that lamppost? Such a thing could not have occurred, because she never dropped it under that lamppost to begin with. Therefore, she is looking for something that doesn't exist. Will she ever find it? If she found it, that would be a miracle. Therefore, my dear children and ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to understand and realize the truth of this world. What pleasure is all about. I don't mean to say that you feel pleasure, right? It's very fine, but it is very precise. If you really fine-tune your understanding or the realization, you will be able to appreciate the difference. Right? Let us clarify. No worries, right? Even if you don't understand a word, don't worry. The guidance is there. It is still available. Because the lineage of the noble ones is still exists. Up to date. Okay. So, when the pressure is released, as for example, in our headache example, right? You had a huge headache, throbbing headache, which bothers you from evening to night. When you have gotten rid of it by having pills of paracetamol, now you feel a release, right? You call it a pleasure. Now my question is, where did that pleasure come from? Did that pleasure come from those 2 pills of paracetamol? But that's the only thing that you took from the outside, right? Did you take anything else? No. So if that was a pleasure that came from outside, where should it have come from? It should have come from the 2 pills of paracetamol that you just consumed. Shouldn't that be the case? Logically speaking, it should be the case, right? If 2 pills of paracetamol can give you that kind of pleasure, once you have recovered from that headache, right? Now you don't have headache. Now you have recovered. If you still take 2 pills of paracetamol, shouldn't you be able to experience the same amount of pleasure? Logically speaking, what should be the case? If the pleasure came from the 2 pills of paracetamol, I'm talking, right? You should be able to gain and experience the same amount of pleasure. But would you? No. If 2 pills of paracetamol can give you this amount of pleasure, what if you consume the whole card at once? Then it should have given you even more amount of pleasure. What if you consume the whole pack of paracetamol? It would have given you even much more pleasure. But does it work like that? No. Then, what is the mechanism of the generation of this pleasure? Because if you want to experience more pleasure, you should know how does it arise. Shouldn't that be the case? If you want to maximize the amount of pleasure that you experience, you should know how to maximize. That means you should know the mechanism of the generation. Right? So we are going to analyze, we are going to learn the mechanics of pleasure. Right? Can you experience that pleasure that you experienced once you have recovered from the headache without having a headache? No. This is the point. Without the headache, you cannot experience this pleasure. Therefore, what did you experience? What is that experience that you got? It is the release of pressure or the pain. Here, in this case, it is a physical pain. I know it's not the pain that I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the mental pressure, which is not physical, right? So, because this is an analogy, right? Once you get rid of, or once you release or vent the pressure out, you feel good. This feeling is what we refer to as pleasure. Nothing beyond that. Right? Okay, let me ask you another interesting question. What is created after releasing the pressure? Is pleasure created in your mind? Is pleasure increased in your mind? Yes, you feel it, right? You feel as if something which is called pleasure gets increased in your mind. But let us look and let us analyze whether that's the true case. That's the reality, right? So let us take our same old analogy of the pressure cooker, right? What is created in the pressure cooker when the pressure is released? Is something decreased or is something increased in the pressure cooker? Decreased. What is it decreased with that? The vapor. And by releasing the vapor, the pressure is reduced, right? The pressure gets reduced. That is why that piece of metal closes by itself. Does it require someone else to close that piece of metal? No, it closes by itself, right? Because when the vapor got decreased, or when the vapor made its way out, the pressure got reduced. Would a reduction of pressure create something inside the pressure cooker? Does it create something? No, it does not. It doesn't create anything. But in your mind, you feel as if something got created. Let me give you another analogy, just to facilitate your understanding, right? Have you seen darkness? Right? You nod that to that question. I'm happy. Let me ask the same question in a different tone. Have you seen darkness? Have you seen darkness? Can you see what darkness is? What is darkness? The inability to see. Right? Can you see the inability to see? What do you think? Let me clarify. Okay? How do you experience? When do you experience darkness? Right? When the light is reduced. Let's say now this room is well lit by these electric lights, right? Let's say we have a dimmer, and we can reduce the intensity of the light, right? When we reduce the intensity, what happens is the intensity of the light gets reduced. What is increased? Did we increase something by dimming the light? No, we didn't increase anything. We only reduced the light. But how would you experience it? What would you tell when the light gets reduced? What would the people in the room complain? Oh, the room is getting darker. Right? The room is getting dark. Right? The room gets something. Not that the room reduced something. The room gets something as darkness. But what did we really do? We reduced something out of the room. We reduced the intensity of the light. But when you perceive it the other way around. What do you perceive? You perceive a darkness. shall I tell you a secret? This darkness that you perceive is just a perception. But you won't believe it. Where do the perception exist? The perceptions exist in your mind, right? So when you experience darkness, when the light got reduced, do you experience it as the mind got dark? Do you say that, oh, the light got reduced in the external world and my mind got dark? Is that what you experience? No, you say to yourself, the entire world got darker. That is how you experience it. So, my question is, where does darkness occur? Actually, the darkness occurs only in your mind as a perception. Because what you did is reduction. You reduced the intensity of light, nothing more. You didn't do anything else. Right? Did you do anything else? No, you just reduced the intensity of the light. When you did that in the external world, what really happened was a perception was created in your mind as if the entire world got darker. Therefore, this darkness is a perception which is created in your mind. Therefore, as a perception, darkness is true. No doubt about it. Right? As a perception is true. Right? But, is it created in the physical world? If it is created in the physical world, you should be able to see it when you switch the light back on. Right? Let's say you completely turn off the lights. Now darkness is created. When you turn the light back on, if the darkness was created, the darkness should collapse on the floor. And if the darkness got created like that, and it is collapsed by the light, then you should be able to sweep the floor and collect some darkness. If the darkness is created, right? If it is created physically, you should be able to show it. Right? Let me tell you another proof to prove that darkness is not something physical. Have you seen the sources of light? Right? There are millions of sources of lights here, right? Each and every light, these LED lights, these CLFL bulbs, right? They are sources of light. They emit light energy. And not only this, these flames emitted by the lamps, right? A lit lamp or a lit candle, that is also a source of light. The sun is a source of light, right? You have come across many sources of light in your life. Now my question is, have you come across a source of darkness where darkness is being emitted? Can you name me one, just one? If you add this source of darkness to a room, the entire room would be filled with darkness. Have you come across such kind of a source of darkness? I don't think so. Why haven't you? Because there aren't any sources of darkness. Darkness cannot be emitted. Why? Because it is not physical. Darkness is only a perception which you experience in your minds. Right? A perception, an experience. Experience is a synonym for perception. Right? Right? Have you found an experience fallen on the ground? Experience? Experience is totally personal. It is unique to your perception. It is unique to your mind, right? It is not physical. Therefore, if darkness is a perception, would that be physical? No. Although you feel as if darkness gets created in your world outside, nothing gets created. Because you cannot prove the existence of darkness. Because there is no sources of darkness. Darkness cannot be emitted. Not even by a black hole. Do you know what a black hole is? It's not a source of darkness. It absorbs all the light. By absorption of light, it doesn't mean that it emits darkness, right? Darkness cannot be emitted, it's just a perception. Therefore, when the light gets reduced, you perceive it as darkness. But nothing gets created in the physical world, although you perceive it in your mind, right? Then it is such similarity, there is such similarity to this phenomenon in your mind. When you release your pressure and experience pleasure. Mark my words, when you experience pleasure, not when you create pleasure. Because pleasure is never created. It's not an entity which gets created in your mind. It's never created, but it is perceived. You perceive it, you experience it. Beyond this experience, nothing gets created. Therefore, if you're looking for pleasure in a source of pleasure, what are you looking for? Something that which doesn't exist. Dear children, ladies and gentlemen, if you really understand this, you would come to know that all these lives and all the years that you have spent so far, you have wasted your time trying to look for something that which doesn't exist. But I don't mean to say that you perceive it, you feel it, right? You feel the darkness. But where does the darkness get created? It's just a perception. So tell me, how much are you going to pay for a perception? That means an experience, right? For a thought, how much are you going to pay? But how much are you going to pay for the hot chocolate that you're going to buy? That looks so delicious and yummy, doesn't it? All these values are falsely added to your mind because of the wrong interpretation of the perception of pleasure. My dear children, don't fall for this trap. This is a perfect trap. If you would like, you can be entrapped forever. But if you are earnest, if you are enthusiastic, if you want to relieve yourself from the prison of the suffering that you have created for yourself, there is a clear path. As I told you, this is a perfect trap. Therefore, it warrants, it requires the perfect one to get you out of the perfect trap. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot express you enough how lucky and how fortunate and how meritorious you are just to hear to these words, just to be in the vicinity when this truth is being uttered. I cannot stress you this enough. My words fail me to emphasize the importance of this. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen and dear children, try to absorb the essence of it. Don't try to remember the words. Words are nothing. Words means nothing when it comes to the essence. When you realize this truth, that is the most important thing. That is why I told you, try to internalize, try to absorb the essence of it. Right? Therefore, when you hang out with your friends, you feel pleasure, right? So, where does that pleasure come from? Your friends, right? Gotcha. You answered to a wrong question that I asked. What is the question that I asked? Where does the pleasure come from? The pleasure doesn't come from anywhere. Pleasure is an experience that occurs as a result, as an effect of a cause. What is the cause for pleasure? I don't mean to say that even a perception of pleasure doesn't exist. That would be wrong. That is exactly the opposite of what I say. Pleasure is an experience, or it is a perception. But How long that lasts? What do you think? How long would it last? Just a brief moment. Just a moment. Because the experience of pleasure signifies that a pressure had been released. Without a pressure being released, this kind of a perception or an experience would not have happened. Are we all clear? Therefore, if you like pleasure, what are you asking for? Tell me. Remember that headache? Imagine that you love that experience of being relieved of the headache. If you love that, what are you asking for? You're asking for another headache. Because what's the only way that you can experience such a relief? You should have the headache to begin with. Are you all clear? In Sinhalese, we say it as asking and eating. Do you want to ask and eat? Actually, I don't want to teach you how to ask and eat. You're all maestros. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. Apply this concept to your life. When have you become satisfied? With what kind of pleasure have you become satisfied? Tell me. I don't ask for two, just one. Do you imagine, do you expect that you can be satisfied in the way that you do? In the way that you lead your life? How many pizzas would you have to consume before you get the satisfaction? I don't mean to say that you give the satisfaction by filling your stomach, filling your tummy, right? Of course, when you are full, you can't eat anymore. Then you'll have to vomit, right? Then you'll have to empty the stomach. Not like that. I am asking you, when have you felt satisfaction from the mind? Tell me one such instant. How many A's should you get to your exams to be satisfied? Or how many, if you are a singer, how many competitions that you have to win the first place before you get satisfied? If you are a teacher, how many times should you perform as the best teacher to be satisfied out of your profession? If you are any kind of human being, how many times should you experience pleasure to be satisfied? Dear children, ladies and gentlemen, try to absorb the truth. Be honest with what you have experienced so far. You are never going to be satisfied. You are going to exhale the last breath being unsatisfied. Don't fall for this trap, ladies and gentlemen. You have a clear path to get out of this perfect trap. This clear path is laid by the perfect one 2,500 years ago. And it is my duty and responsibility, I feel it that way, to remind the noble message that was once uttered by the perfect one, the magnificent one, the unvanquished one. Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear children, the path is already laid. You don't have to pave it. It's already been laid. We just have to follow our teachers. That's what I did. I was also in your seat. A few years ago, I also was suffering from all the sufferings and the stresses that you are going through right now. I was a doctor when I was in my lay life. And I was practicing as a doctor in very well-known pediatric hospital. So as a practicing doctor, I got all the fame, I had the money that I wanted, I had my own car, I had a beautiful family life, I had my parents, fortunately I was not married. And I want to excel through my academic career. I was in the midst of facing my postgraduate exams, fortunately, because of the merit that I have acquired, whatever the form, I don't know. That merit came across, and it allowed me to listen to the perfect teachings through my teachers. I didn't know the value of that back in those days, but now I cherish those moments, each and every moment that I spent with my teachers. If not for them, I would have been born as a mean, please excuse me to say this word, a mean dog. Because all the values that I had in my mind would only bring me up as a very egoistic person. The ego that you have, although you don't know, you're suffering to the best of it. This is why that we feel this much of compassion towards you all. Because I am talking with my experience. If I hadn't got this experience, I would have told you any of this. You can truly be relieved of all your sufferings. This is truly an experience which you can experience in your lifetime itself. But what you might have learned in your schools or in the scriptures or even your textbooks of Buddhism might be different. They might have told you that Nibbana, or the supreme bliss of Nibbana, is something that you can experience after the death. I don't believe in that. Nibbana is experienced at this moment itself. Not tomorrow, not in an hour, not in the next minute, at this moment. Therefore, don't procrastinate your Nibbana. Don't postpone it. Do what is need to be done right now, because you never know when is your last moment. Do you know that? Have you planned for it? Your last breath, when are you going to exhale it? Can you plan for it? You never know when it's that going to be. Therefore, plan right now, not tomorrow, not in the next hour, not in the next minute. Start from now on. Because if you didn't plan for this, you will be facing it completely unplanned. Can you remember the speech that you performed in front of a long, very large audience? Unplanned? That was a disaster, right? An unplanned speech. Improvised performance is a disaster. What if you face your last breath? If you don't plan, don't fall for that very unfortunate situation. Plan it now in itself, because this is the moment. This is the point of time where you can change yourself. You're not late. You're not late because your heart is still pounding. I won't tell this if it stopped pounding. Believe me, I'm not telling this if your heart stops pounding, because then it will be too late. But it still pounds. With each cycle, with each beat that it pulsates, it is saying something. The heart says that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Because what is heart supposed to do? To circulate the blood throughout the systems, right? Throughout the body. The heart says that I'm pumping blood, which is what I'm supposed to do. And it also says, what are you doing? It asks you a very strong question. Are you doing as what you are supposed to do. You came to this world as a human being, a very healthy human being with a healthy body, to understand and realize this truth, because you're being born in an era of a supreme Buddha Sasana, where you can understand and realize and eradicate this suffering once and for all. My dear people, why don't you make use of this opportunity? Do you think that you have got this by chance? Do you think it's a coincidence? No, it's no coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. You get only what you have given. If you give, you will get. I can prove it to you if you're interested. Let's take an example. Let's say there's a small child who plays with stones, right? There's a child who takes up little stones and he throws it up. Not sideways, not backwards, not forwards, but directly upwards to the sky. Then what would have happened? It will fall, following the same track of line, because it is gone. It is the trajectory line is a simple line, right? It's not a curve, right? Because you throw the stone directly up against the gravity, right? So when it comes down, it falls on the same spot, right? Okay, let's say this child, now he throws up stones, and when it comes down, he catches them up. So this is the game that he plays with himself, right? Now just imagine, once he throws up a stone so far high in the sky, now meanwhile he forgets that he threw a stone. Why? Because it takes a long time. It takes a long time for it to be reached in his hand. Meanwhile, he has forgotten. Now is he ready to catch it up? No. Just by the fact that he has forgotten that he has thrown it up, does it mean that the stone that he threw up will get disappeared? No. The stone won't get disappeared. It will come along the same line. When it comes, now he is not ready. Then it would fall on his head. And he will hurt himself so bad. Now, this child is blaming everywhere. Who is throwing stones at me? I'm so innocent. Right? Now he is on his own tail. How can you prove to this child that this was a stone once thrown up by himself? What is the proof? Imagine there's no CCTV. Right? Imagine there's no CCTV. Without using any advanced technology, how can you prove this to this child that it was a stone thrown up by himself? What is the proof that you have? Do you have a proof to begin with? Yes, you have. Think deeply. What is the proof that you have to prove that it was a stone thrown up by himself? Okay, I'll help you, right? This requires a small science lesson, right? Because this is, I believe that you may have learned this in your science lessons, right? Okay. For you to get the stone from above the sky, not from the sideways, right? The child has seen that the stone came right from the top of the sky, right? If that is the case, how can this stone go up in the sky? Are there any floating stones in the sky? Have you seen floating stones in the sky? There are no such floating stones. Or else, how could a stone get into the sky? Could someone from somewhere have thrown a stone there, and when it rests, fall on this trajectory line? Can that happen? No, that cannot happen, because you have learned it in your science lessons. If you throw a stone sideways, it will follow a trajectory line of a parabola or a parabola, right? It will follow a parabolic line. So this parabolic line is not disrupted just because it has to fall on a spot that you define, right? It doesn't happen that way. Therefore, tell me, what is the only way that a stone to get into the sky directly up above his head? Where should it have started from? Where? By himself. So, just by the fact that the stone he gets directly from above himself, itself proves that it was a stone thrown up by himself. Are you with me? Right? So the fact that you get something itself proves that you have given it in the first place. This doesn't apply only to the stones that you throw up. This applies to everything. What if you are at the receiving end of an undue accuse? Let's say someone accuses you for no reason, and for no valid reason. Haven't you undergone this? Oh, tell me about it. Although your heart, your intentions are so pure, although you are so compassionate towards everyone, haven't you been accused? Yes, you have. Why do you think the reason is? Sometimes you might have questioned yourself, why is it me always? Why does this happen to me? Now you know the reason. What is the reason? Why does it come to you, Buddha? If something comes back at your head, where should it have started from? From me. If an undue accusation, if a false accusation come at you, why does it come to you specifically? Because we have given it in the first place. How is it being proven? Because we get accused. We can never be accused if we haven't accused in the first place. Why does it come at us? Because we have given it in the first place. The fact that you fail to realize this, when something which is not pleasant comes to you, you will reject what is rightfully yours, which is being offered by the nature. Right? To whom does that result belong to? To you. Because we are the ones who threw it up. If we reject that action itself creates another stone. We are throwing it up. And the effect of that stone will come back at us. Actually, we are failing. We are failing at our noble virtue. That means we fail the outcome. Desired outcome is to be free. You don't like to be accused, do you? By any chance, does anyone in this room like to be accused? I don't think so. But still, even though you don't like to be accused, don't you get accused? You do. Why is it? Because we accuse the wrong ones. Once we get accused, we used to accuse them back. Right? Is that the correct response? No. We have to see what we have given. If we haven't given this in the first place, we wouldn't have got it. Therefore, we lose when this realization fails to happen. Therefore, my dear children, and ladies and gentlemen, don't let this happen in your minds, because this will create an unpleasant mindset. The generation of an unpleasant mindset itself is the root cause for the generation of demerit. demerits is a poison for your liberation, your Nibbana. Therefore, try your best to prevent this from happening to you. How can you prevent that? By realizing that this is what I have given, this is what I deserve. Therefore, I am the rightful owner of this effect. Therefore, I agree, I surrender myself to the nature. I accept wholeheartedly with what that the nature has to provide with. If you can say these words to yourself wholeheartedly, I'm sure you are going to stop suffering, at least to a certain extent. But this is not the Nibbana that I'm talking. This is a technique to create your pleasant environment. Right? Try to do that. Because otherwise, if you reject what the nature gives to you, that creates a demerit that is not good for you as well as for the other. Right? Therefore, try to do this. Try to practice these things in your life. Our children can practice it in your school life, right? And all of us can practice in our daily life. Because these are not just principles and concepts. The effect will not manifest unless you practice in your life. Isn't this practical? What do you think? Everything that I told you so far is practical. Without practicing this, don't expect the results will manifest. Don't expect that saltiness that we talked about just a moment ago. It won't occur. If you want to experience salt, you have to get some salt and apply it on your tongue. Then only will you experience the salt, the taste of salt. Likewise, if you want to experience Nibbana, you have to develop your pleasant mindset, and then only will you be able to gain a good amount of merits, and through the power of that merit, you are being pushed to your liberation. You are being driven because you don't know where it is Nibbana. This is a path that you have never traversed before. In a such path, do you think that do you know where you go? No. Right? That is why we need a teacher. The guidance of a teacher is essential, mandatory. When you travel in an unknown path, just imagine you go to somewhere that you have never traveled before. Can you go without a guidance? At least the Google Maps will help you. Right? You should have at least that kind of guidance, if not a proper guider. Right? Likewise, this path to your liberation, you have never gone this path ever before. If you have, you wouldn't be listening to this sermon like this. You have come this far because you have never found this path. Therefore, get the guidance while it is still available. Don't you forget this fact. This guidance will not be available forever. The guidance can only be gotten from the noble friends. Once the Lord Buddha says, actually he is being asked by Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda says that, Venerable Sir, this sasana, at least a half of this sasana is dependent on the noble friends, isn't it? Then what does the Lord Buddha reply for that? No, Ananda, don't even say that. Mahevang Ananda Avacha. Don't even say that. Not the half. The entire sasana is dependent on the noble friends. Don't you ever take it for granted. The existence of noble friends, noble companionship, doesn't occur all the time. Even in this blessed universe, it doesn't occur all the time. Therefore, don't take it for granted. Get this help while it is available. Therefore, the key is to get the blessing is to acquire a huge amount of merits. Because what keeps us behind from Nibbana, your liberation, is the lack of merit. That is why you should organize these kinds of events. That is why you should listen to sermons. Because by organizing these events, just by a small thing, like you appreciated the fact that someone organizes this event, right? What do you think that it is that you just did? That you appreciated. That itself is a merit. It's a huge merit. This is why that I appreciated you all in the beginning. Because there's a very famous saying, you might have heard this. Next to the excellence is the appreciation of it. Have you heard that? Next to the excellence is the appreciation of the excellence. If you can truly, wholeheartedly appreciate of an excellence that someone else has, not of your own, right? If you can appreciate the excellence of someone else, you become next to the excellent just by that fact. Remember this firmly in your hearts and minds and start practicing this. Appreciate each other. This is not going to be easy because your ego won't let you so. Your ego will say this, oh, not only he is excellent, I'm also excellent. Don't let that merit be ruined. Try to suppress your ego and try to appreciate each other. I know this ego is so stubborn. It will pop up when it needs, and it will pop up when it is need to be suppressed at most. Because when you organize these events, you can see much virtues within yourselves, right? But you know, you appreciate that within yourself, but it is very difficult to appreciate it out loud to them. You don't need to appreciate it out loud to be heard by everyone else, but you can go to them personally and appreciate it. Do you think that it's going to be easy? If you think so, be my guest. It's not going to be easy because of the ego that each and every one of us have. How do I know these things? What do you think? I also used to suffer from this ego. As I told you, I was a doctor. Right? What can you expect of the level of ego of a doctor? Come on. Don't wait or don't suffer in the prison that you have built for yourself. The ego that we have is a prison. And you are the only prisoner in that whole mansion that you so-called prison. It's not a mansion, it's a prison. But inside, what you can see is a mansion. It's a full equipped mansion. But the truth is, you have built that prison for yourself. And you have locked yourself up in it. And the decision is yours whether to keep yourself locked up or you want to be released. The decision is yours. Okay, so with that, how long do you want me to continue? Do you have any specific time to end this? Okay. Okay, then I will give you, since we have a few minutes left, I will give you an opportunity to ask a question, a burning question, which relates to what we spoke so far. If there are any doubts or any things that didn't came across your mind or that didn't ring well with your understanding, you can ask them out. If not, we can conclude this session. Okay. The silence signifies that none of you have any problem. Either I have been very successful in conveying my message, or that was totally rubbish. I don't think that the latter is the truth. I'm just kidding. So, I know that it is a long way, it's a long journey, liberating yourself. It's not going to be easy. Nibbana will not be served to you in a silver platter. It will be a difficult path. But if you don't plan it from now onwards, you won't get through anywhere. You will exhale your final breath, resenting that I didn't consume my human life, humanity, the fullest. Don't let that happen to you. I'm saying once and once again, over and over again to you, that don't let that unfortunate incident happen to you. That is so unfortunate. Okay, so with that, we can conclude this session by transferring the merits that we have gathered so far. That is why I told you the heaps and heaps of merits you have already gathered by organizing these kinds of an event. Just by organizing and just by listening, just by supporting it by a small word or a thought is going to acquire a huge merit. And can you remember that we invited countless sentient beings out there far and wide in the 10,000 world systems. And why did we invite them? Because if not for this, if not for their sacrifice that we have done in our past lives, we wouldn't have got this Sambuddha Sasana. Therefore, with such a grateful mind that we invited them, and it is our duty to transfer these merits to them. Therefore, they will also get the same chance that we have got today. Therefore, we will do a complete merit transfer tonight and conclude this session. So in your hearts and minds also, let these words be reverberated in them, in your hearts and minds, and engage within this transfer of merit. Okay. Let us take a moment to transfer all the merits that we have acquired today by offering various offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, and by listening to Dharma, by contemplating on Dharma, and by reflecting on the aspects of Dharma, and by engaging in various meritorious deeds today. First and foremost, let us remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of this Lord Buddha's teachings, and with immense gratitude, let us transfer these merits to the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Lord Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of Sri Pitaka, which is thankfully available to us to study, understand and comprehend the Dharma. Let us also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters who have dedicated their lives to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget that among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer these merits to our Guru Swami Mahanse and all other monks who are resident at our monastery, and to all our Anagarikas and Anagarikas who are attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits and to express our gratitude to all those who make great efforts in organizing these events to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by organizing these events, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. Let these merits be transferred to them. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to all our devotees, the friends of our monastery, who continue to sustain the Mahasangha just for the sake of merit. This includes everyone from those of you who continue to sustain the Mahasangha and who have contributed to the construction of the monastery and have provided the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes and medicine, and to all those others who have passed on their know-how and extended their well-wishes. Let us also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, sons and daughters, our uncles, aunts, nephews and nieces, cousins, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employees and employees, and to all those who have helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form. May through the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments, and may they overcome to any of their spiritual progress. May through the power of these merits, may every one of them abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer these merits to all the gods, deities and spirits, primarily the Sakadeva and all other numerous gods and deities who have committed and to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who always protect us, who always gives us a watchful eye, keeps us out of harm's way. May through the power of all these merits that we have acquired, may they be prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer all the merits to all of our ancestors who have predeceased us. This includes everyone, for all of those who have been friends and family to us in this infinitely long journey of samsara. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to all the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives at war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits that we have acquired today. Let us also transfer these merits to all those who have lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, landslides, pandemics, and everything else. Let us also transfer these merits to them. May all those who lost their lives in these natural calamities rejoice in the merits that we have transferred to them, and out of that rejoice, may they all be abstain from unmeritorious deeds, and may the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plains, may they redeem themselves from these woeful plains, and may they be born in the blissful plains. And may through the power of these merits, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And let us finally resolve, may through the power and the blessings of all the merits that we have done today, may we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds and thousands of Arihant Manses in this pleasant land itself, and may through the power of the blessings, let us finally resolve, may you and I and everyone who have helped to support this program be able to be an Arihant Manse or Medin Manse in this life itself and in the era of Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. Abhivadana Silissa Nichang Vadhapachayino Chattaro Dhamma Vadhanti Ayuvanno Sukham Balanti.